Welcome
And
to
could you
Arise.
remind?
Achieve resilience, inspiration, and self-empowerment, a speaker series presented by Vision Loss Alliance of New Jersey. Tonight, we are honored and excited to have with us John Bramblitt, an American blind painter. This artist is known for his bright colors and style that mix impressionism with the modern feel of pop art. Bramblitt was born in El Paso, Texas, and began painting after losing his sight in 2001. He fell into a deep depression until he found painting. He never expected anyone to see any of his paintings. He just knew that he needed to reconnect with the visual world he had lost. Since then, John's work has been featured in major news outlets, and he's traveled the world. He's worked with celebrities such as Tony Hawk, Jeff Bridges, and Lyle Lovett, among others. In 2017, John partnered with Delta to paint a Boeing 737 promoting the Rock in Rio concert. John has received 3 Presidential Service Awards for his innovative multi-sensory art workshops and has been named a cultural ambassador, U.S. Not only is John a recognized painter, but he is also now the only blind muralist, having completed projects in New York, Dallas, and Fort Worth. For the past 10 years, John has shared his story, energizing organizations and motivating people to exceed their limits. John's unique journey from the dark has enabled him to connect with the visual world. Before we move on to our artist's journey, let us review our Zoom protocol for this evening. We ask that you hold your questions until Mr. Bramblitt opens the floor for questions. When you ask your question, we ask you to use the raise your hand feature. For those of you who dialed in, the raise your hand feature is *9. *6 will mute and unmute you, giving you the opportunity to ask your question. Using a computer, Alt-Y is the raise your hand command, Alt-A, mute and unmute command. If you're using a Mac, use the Option +Y, the keyboard shortcut to raise or lower your hand, Alt+A, mute and unmute yourself. Using the Zoom app on the iPad, move to the top right, select the More option, flick down to the Raise Your Hand feature. On the iPhone, this feature is located at the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side. And now, it's our pleasure to introduce to you John Bramblitt. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much. And I'm so happy to be here, guys. I'm so honored. And oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. I guess I'll start from the beginning. How about that? But I want to encourage everybody to ask any questions that you want, at the end. So if you, about anything, I work with museums all over the country. I work with schools and nonprofits and charities, and I do a lot of workshops with children and a lot of workshops with children who are sighted. And whenever they find out if you're a blind person, they'll ask anything like, how do you go to the bathroom? How do you do this? How do you do that? So believe me, there's nothing that you can ask me that, everything is open. I travel with a guide dog. A lot of people are really curious about the guide dog and what that's like. I've been a professional artist for 15 years. So if you're curious about that, or if you're into arts or anything, or blindness or anything, please feel free to ask whatever you want. But I'm so excited to be here. Growing up, I had a lot of health problems. I was born with epilepsy, and it developed into severe epilepsy. I think I had my first major seizure when I was 2 years old, and I had kidney problems. I had a kidney removed by the time I was 7 and had different neurological problems. So there was just a lot of things happening when I was growing up. And then I ended up getting Lyme's disease. And this was over 20 years ago. And Lyme disease wasn't really known down here in the South, like in Texas. So I went undiagnosed for years. But I was really fortunate, though, because it didn't sound like it, does it? When I mentioned all that, it's like, wow, you were really lucky. But I was really fortunate though, in that I had incredible people around me, and just a loving family and a supportive family that really loved and cared, but they also encouraged me to do things, and not like hold back any. And I also had artwork. I think I have a weird brain. Like I think I could draw before I could walk even. Like for some reason in my brain that just made sense. So growing up, I took every kind of class I could on drawing. By the time that I went to college, I could do the blueprints for a house, like exploded view of an engine, like drafting. Could draft all that out. I could do the portrait of a person and charcoal, pen, pencil, cartooning, anime. I took every class that I could growing up, and I bothered every artist that I could get a hold of and bugged them until they would teach me some stuff. So I think there's a word for that. I think I was a huge nerd. So I just, I really tried to soak up as much art as I could. And then in college though, well, let me tell you this really quickly, because I think it's important. Out of high school, I was still sighted. I didn't lose my eyesight until I was in college for the second time. And I just want to mention this because the first, I went to college right after high school. I went to a community college, and I wasn't an advocate for myself at that time. So I went to the community college, and I didn't tell anybody that I had epilepsy. If you want to know, how to do everything right, just look at what I did and do the opposite. I did everything wrong. So I went to the college. I didn't tell them about stuff. So, and I was having these massive seizures where I would be out for a week or two. Like it was affecting my breathing. It was affecting all these different things. So I would end up in the hospital, and then I'd go back to school. Like my grades were great when I was there, but then I would leave for a week or two because I was in the hospital, and I would come back and I wouldn't tell anybody what had happened. I wouldn't tell the teachers. And then after a while, I thought, maybe school just isn't for me. It's not the path that I should take. And I was really into computers because, again, like I say, I was a nerd. So I was really into computers. And so I started working with companies doing their computers. But then after a few years, I started to think, I thought, if I don't ever go back to college, if I don't go to college now, I probably never will, and give it a real try. So I thought, well, let me do that. But this time, though, I matured a little bit. And the very first place that I went to the college was the Office of Disability Accommodation. And it was the office where they help people if you have a disability, if there's something going on like that, to help you be able to adapt. And let me say this too, not every college is the same. Every college has an Office of Disability, but not all of them are as helpful as the one I went to. And I was very, very lucky because I didn't know about that. I didn't know that if you went to a college and their Office of Disability was terrible, that's not you. It's not your fault that you're not getting the accommodations. You're not getting the help. It's the colleges, and there's other places. And so I was extremely fortunate because I went in there and I went in there and I said, well, I have epilepsy. And I really thought the conversation was going to end there. I thought they were going to say, well, college really isn't for you, but here's some other options maybe you could pursue. But they were like, oh, cool. I have epilepsy, and half of us or a bunch of us have epilepsy, and, and all these different things. It was a very warm and welcoming place from the very beginning. And it was just completely, it was staggering to me about that. And so I started taking classes, and it was about a year to year and a half later. And it's a little fuzzy with me. I mostly remember this, but from being told about it, because one of the side effects of having seizures is that your memories aren't the greatest. Like the memory engrams aren't encoded right. If you have a seizure before something or after something, sometimes you'll just lose the memory, which makes it really interesting as a student, I'll tell you, because if you read a chapter, then you have a seizure, you'll forget everything you just read and you have to read it again. So, that's fun. But, or sometimes you'll have a seizure and then you'll read the chapter, you'll still forget it. Like it just doesn't go in right. But I after about a year and a half, I was having these seizures that was causing my heart to stop and my breathing to stop. And even with a little brain like mine, that's not good. You need air and stuff going to your brain. So I ended up getting brain damage from that. And my neurologist said it was just like getting hit in the back of the head with a bat over and over and over again. And it ended up damaging, I lost about 40% of my hearing, but it was just certain tones. So it's not like hearing across the board, it's just certain tones I lost. There was other damage, but the biggest thing was the optic nerves were damaged. So where the optic nerves go into the occipital lobe was damaged. So my vision became like, kind of like a TV with the cable disconnected. Like my eyes still worked, but the signal wasn't able to get all the way back. And I knew nothing about blindness. Like the only thing I knew about vision loss was what I had learned in watching TV shows and movies. And I don't know if you guys remember like the TV shows and movies, like if you've ever seen them depict a blind person, some of them are getting better. Some of them are actually good, but a lot. Or a loved one will enter the room and they're like, and they don't know, who are you? Who are you? And I'm like, good grief, it's your mom. Like you've heard her voice your entire life. You don't know who it is. So, but that's the sort of training that I had about blindness. That's what I knew. So the idea of doing anything, it just didn't seem possible to me. So I ended up going to the Office of Disability. And I went to the director, his name is Ron Venable. And I said, well, Ron, it turns out I'm losing my eyesight. So it's been really great knowing you. Thank you for all your help, but I got to go. And it was like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I'm losing my eyesight. So, I can't be here anymore. He's like, well, John, don't be stupid. And he could call me stupid because he knew me pretty well. But at this point, so he was like, don't be stupid. You can do whatever you want. Like you have no idea what's out there, the accommodations, the accessibility, the software that's coming out, all this stuff. He said, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. And I thought he was such a nice man to lie to me, to make me feel better, just to try to brighten my day with all this nonsense. And because I didn't believe him at all. And but he was so fervent about it. And all of my instructors and the people of the ODA and all these people were like, well, no, you don't have to leave. What are you talking about? Of course you're going to be great. This is going to be okay. And so, and and honestly, I was afraid if I left school, I would never go back. Like I felt like I was losing everything. And always, I've heard so many stories of people leaving the school for a good reason, and then they're never able to make it back. And I didn't want to lose anything more. And I felt good at school. I was surrounded by these positive people. So I was very fortunate in this, and a lot of people don't have this. I was just so lucky. And I want to stress that I was so lucky because they made it where I was able to stay in school and get incompletes in my classes. And I would have a sighted guide actually take me from my apartment and take me to school while I was learning stuff like orientation and mobility, while I was learning screen readers, while I was learning Braille, while I was learning how to eat without knocking my water over my plate all the time, and how to cook. Like, oh my goodness, I love to cook, but there are so many hot, pokey, sharp things in a kitchen. I mean, like it's ridiculous. But but you learn these things, you start learning how to adapt. And but even though I was learning all this stuff, I was so angry on the inside. I was so depressed. And I didn't realize, I realized at that point really that hope is it has a physical presence in the world. And I knew that because I just had this ache in my chest where hope used to be, like this idea that you can have a better tomorrow, that you can actually do things. All that was completely gone. And I just thought if I work my absolute hardest and I'm able to get a degree, then maybe I can just get some kind of job and not be a burden on my family, stay living independently. And I was just so depressed. I wasn't seeing things as they truly were. So I want to stress that, I was just very angry. I was so depressed. But one of the things that happened was I started learning cane travel, how to use, or orientation mobility. And the first time I met my O&M instructor, which is the person that teaches you a cane, she came to my door and she had this big white cane, and she was like, all right, I'm going to teach you how to cross streets. I'm like, well, cool. That sounds great. So I live in Denton, which is sort of an artsy college town in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And she's the only person I ever met that actually looked for traffic. So we got in the car and we're driving. We drove like 30 minutes to downtown Dallas. And so we're driving around for half an hour, and she'll find an intersection. She'll go like, nope, it's not busy enough. Nope, it's not busy enough. And finally, she found one she was really excited about. And it was like 3 lanes going one way, 3 lanes going another. And then it was on the corner. So there's all these other lanes doing their own thing over here. And she put me there and she showed me how to find the corner, how to get on the corner in the right way, and started telling me a little bit about engine sounds, about, listening, if, for the engine surge, if it's going straight, left, right, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting. And she says, all right, so 6 lanes over is another curb, exactly like the curb we're on. I'm like, well, that's interesting. She says, and you're going to cross this road. And I was thinking, my goodness, I just met this woman and she's already trying to kill me. Like, what did I do to her? Good grief. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but there used to be an old game called Frogger, where you had this little frog, and the whole object of this video game was that you had to hop them across the road and not get squished. The thing was, I was never good at this game. Like, it never ended up well for the frog at all. But you know, and just standing there, like, you could feel the trucks going by, and it was just the rumble in your chest, you know, and the motorcycles and this high pitched whine, all these cars, the fumes. It was a hot day, and you know, and the heat's just radiating up from the sidewalk. It was just overwhelming. But she showed me how to do it. And we got across, and it turns out she wasn't trying to kill me, which was a great win. That's a result. And once I got across that, I thought, my goodness, maybe there's something to this. And so I just started practicing the cane like a crazy person. And I would practice it at night, you know, when I'd walk around all the hours of the night because there was less people around. It was dark. Light really hurts my eyes. So I would just practice, you know, you'd hear me out on the streets of Denton, go click, click, tap, 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 just walking around, trying these things out. And then finally, about a year after that, I knew it well enough so that I could leave my apartment and I could find the university, you know, and it went in stages. I was able to find the university and then find the right building and then find the right classroom and then find the right seat in the right classroom, the right building on the university. And be able to do that and cross the streets and not knock over too many people, you know, and I thought, well, my goodness, if I could do this, and this is when it kind of clicked and things started to change for me a little bit, because I thought, if I can cross these streets with traffic and get across this chaotic campus, you know, I'd always trip a few people, but, you know, no one seemed to care too much. Everybody was okay with it. But if I can do that, surely I could navigate something much smaller, like a canvas. And that's when I started learning how to draw again, you know, and art had been my way. Like, I drew literally every day when I was growing up, because if I was in a hospital, if I was having a bad day, I would draw. If I was having a good day, I would draw, because, you know, art's a great way to deal with a bad day or a great way to celebrate a good day. And I drew every day up until I lost my eyesight. And then it didn't even occur to me that I would be able to ever do it again. So I started learning how to draw because, you know, honestly, the difference between a sighted artist and a visually impaired artist, it isn't that much. There's just a couple of things, to be completely honest. If you're a sighted artist, then you're going to use your eyes to know where you are on a canvas. You're going to look and see where your brush is, and you'll look and see where all you've been. You can see all the work you've done. Well, if you're a visually impaired artist, you're going to use your sense of touch. You know, just the way you would trail and get around a room, just the way you use your sense of touch to use a cane and navigate around. Well, you can feel where you are on the canvas, because I use paints that I can touch and feel. So when I draw a line, I draw a line that I can feel, that I can touch, and then I change my paints. And I'll tell you guys about that in a minute. But the basic idea is that all I'm doing is just using the O&M skills, and then I'm combining it with art skills that I knew. And it's nothing crazy. It's nothing hard to learn. It's nothing hard to teach. It's just these basic skills. But it's basically making it where you can navigate around a canvas the same way that you would navigate around a room or navigate around a city. And just like learning the cane and how to do that, you get better with it over time. You know, like, I don't know, like if any of you like use a cane, I remember when I first got it, I would still walk into trees. I would still walk into walls, and you know, you got to learn to start paying attention to that cane and what it's telling you, and you develop better techniques and you just get more adept at it. And so eventually, if I had my cane, I wouldn't feel blind anymore. You know, like I could be standing in a room and I knew that, hey, I can at least find the wall, or I can start trailing and I can do this. You got strategies to deal with your environment. And then later, I travel with a guide dog. It's the same sort of thing. Well, with a canvas, it's exactly the same. But at first, when I started drawing, my drawings were very rudimentary. They were very simple. It was like I went from being able to do these really detailed portraits in charcoal of a person's face where it looked very lifelike, to, after losing my eyesight, trying to draw squares and circles, you know, trying to draw a square that was exactly half the size of the other square, and, you know, trying to understand it and touch it and feel it and visualize it with your mind. And that was something else that I learned, where the part of your brain that visualizes, because I was really afraid that I was going to forget what color looked like or what everything looked like. Like I said, I had no idea about what blindness was, and that blindness is a spectrum. I mean, it's so different for so many different people. people can be visually impaired and, and their experience is radically different. I knew none of this at that time, but it gave me a way to start being able to work out things. So whenever I was painting, even though it was very rudimentary, like I remember my first drawing, I had a sculpture of a Buddha. It's like a little wooden statue that somebody gave me. And I'm not Buddhist, but it was a gift and I loved it and it was there and I knew it really well. So I would touch the Buddha, something that I could touch and feel, and I would start trying to draw it. I would try to remember what I would see and then I would start to touch it and feel it, because perception in your brain, and I didn't know this before, but the same part of your brain's like a computer. So that part of your brain that puts together the images, or the parts of the brain that do images, it's the same part that your body uses when you're having a dream. So if you're sighted, you've got these chemical and electrical signals going back to the brain. It makes an image. Well, it's that exact same part of your brain that makes the images when you're dreaming or if you're imagining something. So that part of my brain was still fine. It was just the optic nerves that had been damaged going to it. So I could remember things just well. And I could dream just very well. And I could imagine things. So I could touch and imagine in my mind what it was I was touching. And over time, I would get better at that. So, and I apologize. I have an artist brain. I jump around a bit, but let me show you guys something really quick. So I know we just have a short amount of time, but I want to tell you guys some other things really quickly. But I want to show you really quickly how I paint, like what I do with the art and stuff, how I do that. So like my paints, let me reach over. First thing I do, like I thought telling color would be the hardest thing. Turns out it's the easiest. And there's lots of ways to do it. So this is a light yellow. So I'm going to hold it up, and I think I'm holding it in the camera. Sorry if I poke my finger in your eyes. I'm going to see where the camera is, but I'm very lazy when it comes to Braille. So on this, I just have an L and a Y for light yellow. But it lets me know it's the only one that I put that on. So it's got to be the light yellow. It's not some other color. And but so that lets me know what I'm starting with. Now in my studio too, I have all these different mediums. So I'm going to hold up a jar. It's filled with a medium. But let me explain what a medium is. So when I first started painting, I used oil paints. Now I use acrylics. And the big reason for acrylics is because they dry so much faster. And whenever you're using touch to know what you're doing, the paint being able to dry fast is a big win, because you get to go in and feel what you did a lot quicker. And there's different mixtures, different ways to do the paint where it can dry almost instantly, which it made it where I was able to go from doing one painting a month to doing it. I usually work on 3 to 5 paintings at a time now, and it usually takes me a few days to do a painting, but I'm always working on lots and lots of paintings because I'm a little obsessed with art. But the thing with the mediums is that you can change the way each color feels. So a medium is just, if you think about paint, you have the sticky stuff that holds the paint together and lets it stick on the canvas. Well, that's a medium. And most of the paints all have the same medium starting out. It's a medium, if you will. But you can buy other ones that feel different. So you can buy mediums that are really thick. They're so thick, it's like clay. And some so thick that you can carve them with a knife. You can get them where they run like oil. Where they feel like toothpaste, where they're slimy, where they're gritty, it's just tons and tons of these different textures and viscosities that you can get for a medium. So what I do is I'll mix a medium into the white to make it feel like toothpaste, where it's really creamy and sticky and thick. Then I can mix another one into the black and make it feel runny and slimy, kind of like oil. So in my palette, the really thick paint, it's got to be white. The slimy, runny paint has got to be black. There's no thought involved, that what it is. But the other plus you get is that if you want to mix a color between the two, then I just mix for the texture between those two feelings, between the really thick paint and the slimy paint. So whenever it's halfway between those two, I know the color is halfway between the two. So you can do that with color. You can also do it with tone. So if you want to go from light to dark, you can use that same system. But it gives a way to be able to touch. And it's actually really easy. I work with museums. I work with museums all over the country, the Met, the Guggenheim, Dallas Museum of Art. I work with museums everywhere and different organizations. And over the past 15 years, I've blindfolded and taught sighted people as well as visually impaired people. But I'll blindfold sighted people, and I've taught thousands and thousands of sighted people how to paint in 5 or 10 minutes, and they have no specialized training, no O&M, nothing. They're instantly in the dark with their. But in 5 or 10 minutes, they're painting cartoon characters because they can feel the raised lines, and they can feel like, oh, this must be red. It feels like this. It's the only paint that feels like this. So it's just really simple. And but it's like anything else. The great thing about art is if you can do it a little bit, then you can do it a lot. You just keep adding to it, and you make 1,000 failures. But then when you get that one success, you remember it, and then you keep doing that one success, and then you make 1,000 more failures, and then you get the next success. And so you just keep adding to things. But so for me with paint, that's basically the way I do color. But there's also other ways. Like in 2017, I became the world's first blind muralist. Which kind of funny because this film crew wanted to celebrate World Sight Day. It was an international film crew. They wanted to do a film that went all over the world to help celebrate and raise awareness that in blindness, something like 70% or more of blindness can be like prevented by just taking a vitamin. So they're just trying to spread the information. And they asked me if I could do paint a mural in New York. And I'm on the phone with them. I'm like, heck yeah, I can. Let's do it. Let's make this happen. Then I get off the phone and I think, what the heck am I talking about? I have no idea how to paint a mural. Like everything I paint, like I touch to paint, so the idea of painting a giant wall is crazy because I can't feel the entire wall at the same time. Even if it's a large canvas, I can walk over to the end of it and feel. I can walk back to where it was and feel. But I do all these workshops. I'm always telling kids, like, one of the most important things is to keep trying, to not be afraid of failure. If you do fail, you learn from it, and it's all. So my knee-jerk reaction to stuff like this is just to do it. So I did come up with some techniques and stuff that worked. And we went to New York and we did the mural, and it was great. And then since then I've ended up doing like some 4-story murals where I'm in a crane and they're like driving me around on the wall and just in a paint of 737. We've done different things. But the way that I mix the paint for that is different because I can't use texture because that'll get weird on the wall after a while. And so I just use a recipe system, which is another great way. So if like you want a gray and 8 parts of white and 4 parts of black will make this certain shade of gray, then you've got a recipe. So every time you mix that paint, you put in 8 parts of white and 4, you just follow the recipe and you always get the same color. But that's boring, to be honest. It works really great, but adding the texture is much better. And but that gave me a way to be able to do that and be able to do different things with it. And so, and I got to say, it's really interesting. One of the main reasons that I do murals is really to spread awareness, because I don't know if you guys ever get tired, but if you like go into a coffee shop and if you are visually impaired and people know that you are, if you have a cane or if you have a guide dog, you get asked questions like, well, how did you get here? How did you get to this coffee shop? Like, if you traveled there independently. And, and it's funny because a lot of times people don't seem to understand what a person with visual impairments can do. So working on these very public sort of murals was a nice way of being able to say, like, having a visual impairment doesn't mean that your life's over. It doesn't mean that you can't follow your dreams, that you can't do things. And the thing I do is very silly. I play around with sticky stuff and I put it on a surface so it doesn't fall off. There's people with visual impairments doing actually important jobs that are out there making a difference, but I get to follow my dream and I get to do this work that I love, and I get to paint, and I get to do that for a living. But one of the things that I love about what I do is that even though like whenever I started doing this, the idea of blind painting wasn't really a concept. There was a guy in Turkey that was doing it, which I love him. He's a sweetheart. We didn't know about each other at the time, so we were both kind of coming up with our own ideas. But I thought I was nuts. I thought I was crazy when I started learning to paint. I started putting these ideas together. And I never thought anybody would ever see a painting of mine. That wasn't even the idea. Like, my health was really bad. My prognosis wasn't good. Like, the neurologist told me at some point, my family and I, that they thought I had maybe a year to live. Like, any of these seizures were just out of control. Any seizure could be the last one. And unfortunately, I had some massive seizures that caused the damage. And that actually kind of helped. And then one of my neurologists had gone to a conference and heard about Lyme's disease. And he was like, gosh, that sounds a lot like John down south. So they went down, they started running tests for it. And I'd had these massive seizures, and it's kind of like, if there's a tornado, you can't predict where the tornado is going to go. but you can see where it went, like after, and you can track the trail of the tornado. So after these massive seizures, they were able to see where the seizures were starting, where they were going a little bit better. So because of the damage, so they were able to go in and run all these tests. And because of that, they were able to, and because of the Lyme disease, they were able to start treatment, and it made it where they were able to cure it. Well, not cure it. I still have epilepsy, but they're able to make it where I stopped having these massive seizures and everything started getting better. But in the beginning, thank goodness. But in the beginning, an idea of a long, healthy life wasn't really an idea. I just wanted something, I needed something to help deal with the anger and the depression. And I needed something that made a difference, that made me feel better. And art did that for me. So I would go to school and I'd be at school. And one of the side benefits of not being able to read or write for a while, because I was learning screen readers and the Braille and everything, is that I didn't have homework. So that was nice. I'd go to school and get these incompletes and go home and had free time. I'd always make sure to be around people, because I learned as a child, with the epilepsy, that you need to be around people, because that will just make your depression go crazy. So every day I would make sure I would go to a coffee shop. I'd go somewhere where there's people, but then I would go home and I would paint for 12, 14 hours or more. And I would sleep for about 4 hours, and then I'd get up and I'd flip it and I'd do it all again. But it made it though, whenever I was painting, that I wasn't worried about the past. I wasn't concerned about the future. I was right in that moment with the brushstroke. And that made it where I was able to calm down quite a bit, and I was able to relax and put things in a perspective and start living in the moment, so that whenever I would leave the easel, I was still in the moment. So whenever I was around family and friends, whenever I was doing something, I was actually in the moment and able to appreciate it. And after about 8 months, I felt like this weight had been lifted. And I was still angry, I was still depressed, but it was just so much less. And the more that I painted, the more it helped. And that's still why I paint to these days. I paint literally every day. If I'm traveling, if I'm kayaking, I have a little tiny paint kit that'll fit in my backpack when I'm kayaking or camping or something. I've got to paint every day. It's my way of dealing with things, and it's my way of connecting with people and reaching out to people. And I never thought it would work. And I can't tell you how blessed I feel to be living this life so many years down the road, and actually like being able to talk to you guys, like being here, chatting with you guys, and being able to make these connections. And, and from the artwork, because, to me, that was just everything. I didn't think it would happen. And we just opened the first gallery, and I say first gallery, who knows, maybe it'll last a month, but no, not gonna win. We just opened a gallery though, where it's all inclusive. And that was a big thing, where people could come in and actually make art. And if you're visually impaired, if you have a disability, it's accommodations for everybody to come in and feel, together. And and I want to mention one more thing before we go to questions or anything, because I just signed on with the Kennedy Center. They asked me to be a mentor for their program, and it's a brand new program they're coming out with, because the Kennedy Center is located in Washington, and I did a live painting for them on stage in October, where I was up there and I was working with a band, and I did a live painting, and I got on really well with them. And then they contacted me after and said, "Hey, we want to start this mentor program where we can help artists with disabilities everywhere they are, not just in Washington." So we're starting this. So if you're an artist with a disability that has an interest in art, or going professional with it or not, but you're wanting to get into galleries, museums, if you're wanting to talk about mediums and all that, then it's a brand new program. But I've never heard of a program like this, where you actually have people at the Kennedy Center that are going to be there every month, like actually helping, answering any question that you have. And I'll be there, and actually make, we need more artists with disabilities getting in there and spreading the word, and, and just reaching out to people and and letting people know, So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, because if anybody here is an artist with disability and they're wanting to take it to a professional level or something, then there's that. So just reach out to me. But I'm wondering if maybe we should go, if there's any, if we should go to questions, because I can keep talking. I'll guarantee you, I get really excited about art, and I get really excited about disability awareness, but I'll ramble on forever, guys.
So, John, we do have a couple of questions. So we're going to go in order as you ask them. Suzanne, you are up first. Unmute yourself, please. Good. Nope.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, sure
We got
can.
you.
Hi,
Yeah.
John.
Well, hi, Suzanne.
I wrote you maybe 8 years ago.
Oh, did I write you back?
Yes, yes.
Good, thank you.
And-
I'm so glad. I have a horrible time with email and Facebook and different things. And
Yeah,
there's so many that go under the radar, and I live in constant fear of not being able to get back
but
there.
I love you. I really do.
Oh, thank you,
I'm-
Suzanne.
I'm a struggling artist, I would say. I keep on trying. I've only worked with acrylics, and it's been hard. Because the texture stuff I never even thought of, which I'm going to have to try.
Mm.
Because that sounds great. Is there any other suggestions for someone? I mean, I'm not a young person, so I've done my thing in life. I have glaucoma, so before I lost my sight, I was a nurse and did a
Okay.
lot of other things. But now without my sight, I still want to paint and I still want to do art. So I'm lucky that Vision Loss Alliance has always had a art therapy class, which was great. And just as suggestions on how to make our program better would be great too.
Absolutely. And there's so many things that you can do. And it's different from person to person because there's so many differences between vision and the lack of vision and also art. Art is so, I've never met two sighted artists or visually impaired artists or any two artists that do things the exact same way.
Mhm.
Everybody finds a way that works for them and then they go with that, whether they have a disability or not. And also there's so many different types of art and so many different types of, even when just with painting, there's so many different ways to paint and styles but there is so much. And it's hard to kind of go through them all, but one of the things that works really well for me is let me tell you this. Just to start off with, like, the best thing that I did was that I gave myself time. Whenever I first started trying to paint without sight, I told myself I wasn't allowed to judge anything I did for a year, which was really hard. I've noticed that creative people are usually some of the nicest people you ever meet. They'll do anything for a person, but when it comes to themselves, they're really hard on themselves, and they can be really judgy about what it is they're doing, and it seems like with artists, if you ask them about their work, either they hate their work too much or they love it too much. But the artist is usually the wrong person to ask about it. But there is so many different things you can do. Like for me, when I first started drawing, I would use these giant thick lines because that's what it took for me to be able to feel them. And then over the years, though, I've been able to make the lines thinner and thinner. And then I have a paint that I have now, and I can tell you the mixture for it. But it makes a line where it dries almost instantly, but it's not raised up really. It just feels different. It has like this rubber cement kind of tacky kind of feel. And then if I don't like the line anymore, I can put other paint over it really quickly, and the line goes away. I can't feel it anymore. Then I can put another one. So but there's all these different things. But one of the things that might help more. I mean, I'm not sure, because like if you have there's like a particular question I can help with. But also, every Tuesday night at 8 Central, I do a live stream, and we're just on here, and I'm just asking questions. I mean, I'm answering questions, and I can show you mediums, and I can show you things. So if you're like, how do you mix that paint? I can actually show you the stuff that I have. And I know the thing with the Kennedy Center too, the whole concept of that is to help artists with disabilities to be able to take their art to the next level.
Yeah.
The negative of the Kennedy Center thing, though, is that you have to sign up for the Kennedy Center. And I think that's like $30 a month, but you get people at the Kennedy Center helping you with your art, which is kind of cool, which is kind of neat.
Yes.
The thing about Tuesday nights with me is that it's completely free. You don't have to worry about paying anything. And so, but yeah, but there absolutely is. There's so many different things. And if you have
Yeah.
some vision, there's ways to be able to help use that and still be able to make art. And there's also, like, there's acrylic paints are great, the mediums that you put in it. But also there's other types of art to make too. Like so I don't know. I feel I know that's not very helpful, but
It's good enough. Thank you, John. Like I said, you impressed me to continue, even though I was hating what I thought didn't look right. So.
oh well, Susan, and I encourage you and anyone else, like, to send me an email. Or one nice thing about the Tuesday night live streams, though, is that it's hard to type emails and put all the information.
Yeah.
Where it's so easy, like if somebody asks a question, to just actually show it and explain it, and actually, I can actually demonstrate it and stuff, and go step by step, and you can go like, oh wait, what about this? And so I don't know. And we play trivia, and I usually give away art prints and stuff too. So we usually have some fun as well.
That's great. That's great. Is there a link that you can give to Linda that she can share?
Oh, I sure can. And it's just my last name. It's on Facebook, so it's Bramblitt. But I can give a link to Linda. But it's on YouTube, and I have two Facebook. I have like my personal page and my art page, and the live stream goes on everything. So I just put it on everything, so it's easy to find.
Great.
And yeah, or if you email me, and my email is just my last name. Everything's just my last name. It makes it easy for me to remember. It's like Bramblitt at Gmail. It's Bramblitt on Facebook. Bramblitt on Instagram.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, so much, and best of luck with your artwork.
She's a beautiful artist, so you know.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She's done some beautiful pieces. Aaron, you are up next.
I just want to say you're really impressive, John. I like how you're able to draw murals just like being blind.
Oh, thanks so much, Aaron.
So I actually never liked art because I found it pointless, because unless it was tactile, I kind of never liked art, because I couldn't admire it myself. Like if I drew anything, or painted everything, or painted something, I wasn't really impressed with it because I couldn't see it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And that's one of the things. Like I work with different museums to make them inclusive, and the gallery I just opened, it's the opposite of almost any gallery I've ever been in, because galleries and museums are such stuffy places, and they're not it's not a welcoming space. And if you're a person who doesn't use eyesight, and you go into a place that's dedicated to the visual arts, and they're not good at it. I don't think most museums and galleries are good at being inclusive, bringing in people that know about the world in different ways, using different senses. So whenever I go to a museum and I do workshops, I do them so that we're including all the senses, so that we can actually go and feel the artwork. We can touch statues, and we can like I had a fun one I did where we were in this museum, and there was a painting about a tango, and like some people doing the tango. So we actually had some dancers come in and do the tango. And we had some Spanish food, and we had all these different things and different smells and stuff that you could touch, and it's just fun. I mean, the thing about art is that it's just a connection. It's just communication. It's just another way to communicate, spread ideas and thoughts from one person to another. And we call it visual arts, but it's just telling a story. And if we're blind, well, we still understand stories, and we still understand communication. We just go about a different way of getting it. So whenever I teach a workshop, and whenever I'm in a place like that, I try to put as much of the information out and using as many of the senses as we can. So there's things to smell and touch and do and move and feel and interact with. And, so it's just fun. You know what the funny thing is, though, Aaron? I started doing this like 15 years ago at a museum. I think it was the Dallas Museum of Art. Yes, it was the Dallas Museum of Art. I think it was the Dallas, but we went in there and they wanted me to design a program for people with disabilities, like for people who are blind. And I was like, heck yeah, I'll do that. So I went in and we did it. And you got all these other groups that are going through the museum and everybody's all quiet and everybody's stoic. It's almost like they're at a funeral, all these other people that are there. And then our group goes through and we're laughing, we're having a great time and we're touching statues, we're wearing white gloves and stuff, but we're able to do all this. And then like in the second week of doing this, 80% of the people that signed up for the workshops didn't have a disability. Other people just saw how much fun we were having using all of our senses and doing this, and everybody wanted to do it. And then it quickly just became a workshop that they just do, so it went from, and the really cool thing is that there was so much information. There was so much that the art world learned from people with visual impairments that it changed the way that people who were sighted started to appreciate and understand the art. So it made the art better for everybody. And I think that was really cool. And
oh, wow.
So it's kind of neat, so we'll do workshops where we'll have let's say like a child who is visually impaired. It has been since birth, painting next to a professional artist, painting to someone else, next to someone else. And the really cool thing, you would think all this inclusion would make things chaotic, but it's the exact opposite. This child is asking questions about color that this professional artist had never thought about in their entire career. And the artist is able to show that child with a visual impairment ideas and concepts about drawing, with textures and different things that they had never thought about. And it's just this wonderful blend, where one isn't better than another. It's just different. And it adds to the experience of everyone.
Oh, wow. That's great. Because actually one of our VLA staff actually teaches art, and she's also blind as well. She's visually impaired. So so you're actually the second person who I know who does art.
Well, Aaron, I should say too, that's a really good question. And that if you don't like visual art, that's completely okay. You know what I mean? I mean, it's everybody has their own way too of finding the way to express themselves and things that connect with them, and like I love music. I can't play music. I can play the ukulele a little bit, but I sure do admire people that can do that and they can sing. And, it's just everybody finds their jam. And for some reason, my weird brain, drawing makes sense. And,
oh, wow.
But for someone else, it's something, but if we were all the same, then it would be a very boring world.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for answering my question. I definitely got enough knowledge. You gave me so much knowledge.
Oh, thank you, Aaron. That's awfully kind.
You're welcome.
All right, next up we have Taryn.
Hi there.
Hi, Taryn.
Hi. So I have two quick questions. First of all, I just want to say I'm a little bit starstruck. I actually went to art school, and your painting specifically was used for one of our palette painting perspective examples, and I had no idea who you were. So
oh, good.
Really cool to hear from you today.
I hope it wasn't one of those examples of what not to do. Like a before and after, and it's like the before picture. It's like
It was an example of texture and palette painting. So you were used as like the prime example of palette painting. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's wonderful to hear.
So my first question, really quick, is are you using a varnish to protect your paintings as you're touching, to protect your paint from the oils on your fingers?
I do. And I've used lots of different kinds of varnish right now. Gosh, I can't remember the brand I'm using, but I'm using a spray varnish now because it makes a really light spray. But I'm making artwork that has this really deep texture to it. And I found that if I use a high quality spray varnish, I can get in all the little grooves and crevices. And then, but I also do some paintings. Like I did a painting for the gallery in Kansas where I was taking paintings that I had done before and I had G-Clee prints made of them and then sent back to the studio. And then I repainted them. Like I went back over them and made this really thick paint, but then I put art resin on it so that there were areas that were really smooth and the areas that had this really thick texture. but I did that so that if you're sighted, the resin makes the colors pop more, and the texture is always great to look at. But if you're a person with a visual impairment, you can feel those prints and understand what the painting looks like. So
Awesome.
so I use resin and I use varnish, but yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that. And then my second question is about your imagery. And while your work is very diverse, I do notice that you have an inspiration and draw towards umbrellas. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. The I was doing some work at the Metropolitan Museum in New York when Hurricane Sandy hit, and the Met is sort of it's like a mecca for artists. It's like a giant cathedral. Like, oh, so whenever the hurricane was coming, I'm like, well, I'm not leaving. This is awesome. I'm going to be here. And I'm glad I didn't, because we were doing workshops and they were packed. We were doing workshops all the way up till the hurricane kind of hit. But I was really fortunate because the hotel I was in, we didn't lose water, we didn't lose power. So we were like, we were lucky because there's all these buildings that were severely damaged and all this stuff going on around us. But after the hurricane left, everything was really calm. It was almost like one of those disaster movies you see where, where it'll show New York or LA or something, and no one's around. So I could walk down Broadway and there was nobody around because everybody with any sense had left. And I had my guide dog Echo, my first guide dog, with me, and we go to Central Park, and my wife was there, and it was a calm it was like the calm after the storm, but everything was like wet. It was just brilliant and beautiful. And that sense of peace, after all that kind of stayed with me. And ever since then, I've been doing umbrella paintings every so often. And but it's also nice too, because with the wet ground, you can have the reflection. So it's a great excuse to be able to put a lot of color on the ground, because it's the water reflecting things. And so, yeah, that's why I do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Taryn.
Thanks for the question, Taryn. Next up, we have Sal.
Hi, John.
Well, hi, Sal.
So before my question, I just got to say your enthusiasm, the passion that you were talking about art, oh my gosh, it rubbed off on me. And honestly,
that's
it
awesome.
reignited my passion for drawing and art, honestly. And
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
yeah, no, I used to draw all the time, photorealism, nothing professional, nothing like very, very good, but I love to do it. I love to do portraits too.
Oh,
And
wow.
so my question was, right, for somebody who's like re-interested in drawing and all that, is there any like requirements for the art program that you said? Do you have to be fully blind? Can you be a little bit sighted?
Oh, no, there isn't. And it's for anybody with any disability too. So no, there isn't, there really isn't. So, and if, and if you don't want to, and if anybody is interested, if they don't want to do the Kennedy Center thing, I'm always willing to help, and so, and like I say, I'm free. The cool thing with the Kennedy Center is that, they have access to so much more information and stuff. And this is a brand new, it's a pilot program they've come up with. So who knows what it's going to happen with it, but it sounds, they're really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. So
I'm excited about it.
Well,
awesome.
I'll share more information about it. It's so new. That I've mentioned it on my social media, but I don't think I haven't really, but in the next day or two, I'm going to be putting a lot of links and a lot more information now out.
Thank you for that.
Oh, of course.
Thank you, Sal. All right, next up, we have Ashley. Ashley, you want to unmute? There you go.
Hello, is this, hey, let's see.
Hi, Ashley.
Ashley.
Oh, okay, I think I'm here. Yeah, hey, everyone. Yeah, thanks for coming, John. Good to hear. I agree with the others that said you're very, you have a very big passion, and that's, very expressed in what you're talking about. I guess, so my couple of questions, and I was also wondering, hopefully you'll share your email address at some point with us. You know, I also was sort of on the fence about art growing up, and sometimes I still am, because being visually impaired, most of the art details I wasn't able to see. So even when I was painting in art classes in elementary school, mainly when we did it, like it didn't always have as much meaning to me, because like I would go through the motions and they would try to show me what to do, but then like since I couldn't see it well, I have nystagmus, so my eyes shake. That's it anyway. So anyway, that's pretty cool though that you are, went back to art and being visually impaired. My question was, is there any particular accommodation you make? I think you said you had some vision still, such as when you do your painting, like extra lighting, and do you tend to do more contrasting colors on a canvas or easel to help you see it better? And also, like, where is your art currently showcased? Those are my first couple of questions. And I was just wondering about if you could share a link to the Kennedy Center program, because I don't really know much about it. So I was curious to know about it too. Thanks.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I don't have any more usable vision left. I lost the
Okay.
last bit about 21 years ago. I have the signal isn't able to get back to the part of my brain that it makes an image. So, but I do have light perception, but light kind of hurts my eyes. I get headaches. So
Got it.
my brain knows that there's light out there, but it isn't able to really to do anything with it. Although it helps so quite a bit. I mean, it helps keep me oriented and things, so most of the time when I paint, I actually turn most of the lights off. I have a little lamp behind me that I keep on because my guide dog is great, but she doesn't do well in the total dark.
Oh, wow.
I've learned to keep a lamp on for her, bless her heart.
Oh, that's interesting, because I thought you were able to see the outline still when you said you could see light, light and shadows. So thanks for clarifying.
Oh, sure, but
Anyway.
but
Thanks.
yeah, but there are a lot of things you can do where if you're able to see that. So I mean, if you're able to see, like, having high contrast, so a lot of times whenever I do a lot of workshops for schools for the blind and for different classes for people with visual impairments, and I always try to draw with a high contrast, like, white on black or black on white, because that definitely makes it easier to be able to see the lines. And you can also, of course, which I'm sure but use like CCTVs and Zoom and different things to be able to go in and blow things up. And I use some of that stuff at first, but then
Yeah,
I was
contrast.
being trained on that when I was first losing the eyesight, but then it was going so quickly. They just took me off of that and just had me learn the screen readers and so that,
Listening to my book.
yeah, and
It's
which
just about over. I think I got 10 minutes left. What are you doing?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know
and
what you mean. I use the screen reader too, because my vision is so like pinhole, so tunnel, that it would be really time consuming and fatiguing to try to use large print. So I was also transitioned to screen reader pretty
and
early
it was
on.
so weird at first. I
Yeah.
remember when I was first starting the screen reader, my teacher, it ran so fast. She's like, oh, so she was showing it to me and it was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh, and she said, well, do you think it's going to work for you? And I was like, yeah, but but we need to set it to English and not like Chinese or whatever it's on right now. She's like, oh, it is on English. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
we need to slow it down. And then, but it's funny. And then now, like, my wife and all, she always makes fun of me because my screen reader is always going, la, 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 la. It's just going so quick, but it's funny how you get used to things.
I see. Okay, so you
Oh.
don't need any contrast.
Oh,
Got
the
it.
Kennedy Center. You asked about that.
Yeah, and where do you showcase your art was my last question. Thanks.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. And well, I showcase in different places. Right now, the only show I have up is actually in my own gallery in Denton, Texas. There might still be one in Santa Barbara. I'll have to check on that. But I show with different groups. One of the main things that I usually do though is that if I do a show, I work with a gallery that will offer free workshops. So so that we can teach art, and then anybody can come and learn to paint, or just paint, or have a good time, or or get blindfolded and learn how to paint. And so, but right now, I'm not showing really anywhere, right? And I kind of almost took like the month off for that, because we're launching the gallery this month. The opening was just last weekend. So I've been running on about 3 hours a night for the last 2 weeks because we're just getting everything ready. And it's been great. I knew it would be like that. So I'm not really traveling anywhere, and I don't have any shows, but that's going to change after this month. But I don't know where the first show is. I am horrible with time, dates, and locations of things. And but I'll definitely put it on my social, and with the Kennedy Center, I'll definitely be putting links out. I have a whole slew of them that they have, and I can share that with Linda if that's good, and I can put it on my social. So whatever works best. And my email is just my last name. It's Bramblitt@gmail.com. And if you forget my name, you can type in blind painter, and I'll usually pop up somewhere.
Thank you. We'll get all the information out to everyone. This is Linda. I have 2 questions actually. When you sit down in front of a blank canvas, is there something in your mind that you want to paint, that you're going to paint, or do you just sit and create?
I do. I always, but there's a lot of art, and there's no right or wrong with it. For me, I always know what I want to paint before I sit down the canvas. And a big part of that is because, especially starting out, the processes that I use, I need to go step by step. So if I'm going to be doing a paint, and I usually paint with some sort of realism, it might be abstract realism where it looks kind of similar, but then the colors can be crazy and all. But because I have to touch the feel, I usually have a process. So I'll do the painting in my mind before I ever sit down on a canvas.
Mhm.
There's some artists that would find that very limiting, but to me, it's a way that I can really work on the composition and kind of tell a story. And so for me, it works. But yeah, so I always kind of have an idea of what I'm going to work on. It usually changes a little bit, but I have some sort of idea where I'm going to take it.
I have
Oh,
another
that helps
question.
too. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, what helps too is because a lot of times artists will get stumped because they have a blank canvas and they don't know what to paint.
Mhm.
I always work on, like right now, I think I have 5 paintings that are going. I always have multiple paintings that are going, because that way I never have just an empty canvas sitting there and I'm wondering what to work on.
Oh,
If I'm not sure, then I'll just work on something else, and I'll keep thinking about it. Then I'll keep working on other ones until finally I kind of know what I want to, start at least. And then I can start on it. But you don't have
So
that
you never
scary
have
blank
focus
canvas.
block.
Yeah. Just,
So you just keep the creativeness going, and eventually
Yeah.
you get to where you want to.
Yeah, and honestly, if the painting turns out or it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. If a painting comes out bad, I'm just as happy with it. I'll white it out, and because I love the act of painting. That's what makes me feel good. And if it does turn out, that's icing on the cake. That I have something I can put in a show, or that I could give to the person that commissioned it. If it doesn't turn out, then I think, well, I learned something. Oh, if it doesn't turn out, it didn't turn out for a reason. And I learned something, and I'm really nerdy and obsessed with art. So I'm kind of excited about learning something. So either way, I'm pretty happy.
Well, just what you said, you love the act of painting. That's what you love to do.
Oh yeah, it's therapeutic. Sometimes your paintings will kind of paint themselves, and sometimes you have to really work at it. But either way, you're not thinking about anything else. You're
Right.
not, and that I love that aspect of it.
Did I also read somewhere that you wrote a book?
I did. I don't promote it too much. It's Shouting in the Dark, and I like the book, but the publisher was supposed to make a Braille copy of it, an audio version, and they got bought out by another company, and then that company got bought out by another company, and the Braille version never got put out. So I sent people, I don't think I was supposed to, but I sent people audio versions of it, or not audio, but like the digital version. And so I'm not supposed to do, but they were supposed to put out a version that's accessible. So shame on them. But
Well,
but
your
the
book.
book is out there, and the reason that I wrote it was because I hearing other people's stories whenever I was at my most angry and depressed, it really helped me. And I thought one of these days I want to just be a part of the dialogue. I want to, just have something out there. And so I did that, and it was a great learning experience. But the next book I write is going to, I'm going to make sure that it is put out in an accessible format. Live and learn. Goodness.
Thank you. Joanne, do you have a question? Go ahead, Joanne.
I don't have a question. I just have a quick comment. You can put as much art as I know in my little finger, but John, you are so inspiring, and I'm just amazed at the accomplishments of you and the other artists that are available here. And God bless you. I just think my age-wise, I'm at the other end of the graph, so I'm past all that enthusiasm. But I just think it's wonderful, and I'm just in awe of your accomplishments, and I just think you're terrific.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I appreciate that so much. That's so kind. And boy, I'll tell you, in the mornings I have arthritis since I was a kid with the Lyme's disease. That left me with a little gift. And in the mornings I'm a little less enthusiastic, especially if it's cold out. But
Well, arthritis I know about. I sleep with Arthur every night.
But I love art, and I love what art does in your life. The painting doesn't, whatever art that you're in, it doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to come together. It doesn't have to be anything at the end of it. But the time spent doing it is just time well spent, and it makes your day go better.
I'm a good watcher.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just sit and doodle, and
Well, you're terrific. And
Oh,
keep it
thank
up.
you so much, Joanne.
Do we have any other questions for John? I'm curious to, John, if you create a piece of artwork and you're not happy with it, like you said, it's all the art, it's the act of painting that makes you fulfilled, that makes you happy. Do you rely on other people to say that your artwork is good, or do you ask other people, or is this something that's just very personal to you?
That's a great question, Linda. I do, like, I'll ask people, and I love getting their feedback, but I learned this from creative writing. I have a degree in creative writing and lit. They didn't offer art for visually impaired people in my college, so I ended up with a lit degree, creative writing and disability studies degree, and I was in school for a long time, making up those incompletes. And but one of the things you learn, though, is to take criticism or praise even in a certain way, so that you have to be ready for it, because someone could come in and criticize what you've done, but they may not understand where you're headed with it or what it is you're trying to say. And so the criticism may just be off the mark. But on the other side of the spectrum, someone could come in and praise what you did. And you're like, yeah, you're right. That is amazing. I love that. But in fact, if you worked a little bit more at it, you could have pushed it a little further and done better with it. So it's nice whenever to get feedback from people, but to be in a neutral sort of space where you want to hear what they have to say, and you take it with a grain of salt. You're like, oh, well, I'm very happy that you like that. That means a lot. I'm glad you made that connection with it and all. Or you didn't. Well, that's interesting. So why is it that you didn't? Like, what do you think would be different? And to be able to take that and then either take it in or not, or do what you want with it. But I know, like, whenever you're creating something, you can't create and edit at the same time. So either you're making something or you're judging it. So it's really important to, like, have the time when you're being creative, and you give yourself the time to make lots and lots of mistakes, lots and lots of failures. Doesn't matter. That's the creative part of it. Like, you need to make those failures. If you're not making those mistakes, you're not trying enough new things. And then later, whenever you've cooled down a little bit from that, like Cezanne would take months sometimes before he would go back and look at a painting. He'd look at it, they go, I don't know. Then he put it aside, he might go back a year later, so, it could be hours, it could be days, could be like Cezanne where, you take it to the extreme, but then you can go back and look at it, with a fresh mind and think about like touch what you did, feel what you did, or see what you did, however you're doing it, and then edit it, and make changes. And, but that works really well for me. And my favorite part of my studio, I have a giant rack over here. It's called the Rack of Shame because it's painting so bad I couldn't wipe them out. I couldn't do anything with them. They were so messed up. And I love them because I learned so much from each one of those paintings. Like I learned what not to do. And it led to me going and working on something else in a different way. And, and painting is a process, it's a journey.
You are really a true artist.
I might just be crazy, or I know I'm obsessed with art. I know that I love art, and
Yeah, but you take it to a different level than just art.
Well,
You do.
thank you. You're my wife really encourages me to paint a lot. I think I might be more irritating to be around when I haven't done art that day. Because she'll like, oh, you should go back and paint some more. It's like, yes, ma'am.
Stacy, you have a question. Stacy, you need to unmute, please. Stace? Where'd you go?
Uh-oh.
Sorry. It took me a
You
minute to
are.
find the. It took me a minute to find the.
That's
unmute.
okay. You're here with us now. Ask your
Okay,
question.
well, one is a comment. The one museum that I liked was this Air and Space Museum in DC because you could touch everything. Like you could touch like a moon rock, space capsule. There's a couple of things in there that you could actually touch.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. I've never been there. My wife and my son have.
It's in DC. It's the only thing I did not like was the ramps. The ramps are very steep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like really steep, like you're on the side of a hill.
Wow.
That's the only thing I did not like about DC was the ramps.
That sounds amazing though, actually being able to interact.
And there's also buses that go around like I think it's like every half hour or something. Like
That's
just
good.
like the different. I think it's like the different monuments and stuff. But the one painting that I haven't finished, but I'm looking for, it has tissue paper on it. I actually put tissue paper on canvas.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
This is
you can
something
feel
that you
it.
created, Stacy, correct?
Yes, it's something I created. I'm not sure where it is at the moment, but I know it's somewhere. But I actually have like 11 blank canvases at the moment. But you're even inspiring me to paint again because it's been a while.
Well, thank you so much, Stacy. That's brilliant. It sounds like you have plenty of canvases to work with. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Good.
Stacy.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
I have a question. It's Elsa.
Hey, Elsa.
Hello, John. Oh, how do you decide which piece of all your amazing art you would actually put on display when you would do a show?
Thank you for saying it was amazing art, Elsa. That's really sweet.
And where can I buy it?
Oh my goodness. Well, I sell everything online on my website. I need to have them updated again, I think, because I've been working on a lot of stuff, but with the gallery being open, I think we're really we haven't been given the website the love it should have, but most of the work that I do is commission artwork, and I'm usually like 6 months or a year out from the time, like, because when I work on commissions, but then I don't know, I just love to work on things. Like so if I get something and it's done and I feel like it felt true a little bit, like it actually felt like what I was trying to say, I might have said it, then I'll put it out there. And I've learned to not fear failure too much, so if I like a painting and I think it's interesting, or I think somebody might connect with it, I'll put it out there and just see what people think. And I do a lot of live painting. Where I'm just working on stuff And I do a lot of benefits and stuff where I'll go and I'll paint on stage, but also just in public, like in my gallery, I'm constantly painting. So if anybody wants to see a visually impaired person paint, all they gotta do is walk in and I'll walk them through it. And I feel like that's a good disability awareness sort of thing too. But, so I don't really mind if something is looking crazy or not together or it doesn't work. You know, I don't take it too personally. So, but if I like it, I think it says something, then I'll put it in a show. That's a
Excellent.
terrible
And,
answer. That was a great question.
I have one more for you. When you mentioned before rotating between several pieces of art you might be working on at once, and obviously I'm sure you have cues for yourself, like the textures to reorient yourself back to that specific piece of art, but been moving between so many pieces of art, how do you regain that quick orientation to get back into the mode of what you wanted to accomplish with that particular piece, if that makes sense?
It does. You know, I don't have any trouble with that. And I remember most of the paintings that I've done pretty well, like what colors I use where. And, you know, for me and my weird brain, like the only time I feel kind of normal is when I'm behind an easel. It's where everything makes sense. And when I'm painting, nothing exists in that world unless I put it there. So everything has been a conscious sort of thought, and I'm working on it. So it's everywhere else in life that's a mystery to me, where like you got to pay your taxes, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and all that is I don't know, it's a strange world sometimes. But behind an easel, I feel like myself more. So when I'm going from one painting to another, it's just like it's like if you're talking to one friend or you're talking to another friend, and you remember the characteristics of them. You don't get your friends confused,
Yes,
So-
that's a good analogy.
So I'm working on a mural for a children's hospital, which I'm doing on these giant canvas panels, and I'm working on some artwork for a soda company for the Disability Pride Month, and I'm working on this couple painting back here, and then I've got a couple paintings of faces that I'm working on that are up at the gallery, and then I've got a boy hugging a dog down there, and I've got I got a bunch of stuff that's I got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah,
But
it's interesting because you find your creativity gives you, and your freedom and poetic license is what provides you structure. It sounds like that's where you have such control over what's in front of you on that easel and what you want to do with it.
I like the way you say that, Elsa, because that makes me sound less crazy. That was really well put. It gives structure to my life. I like that.
Well, I wasn't going to go so far as to say structure to your life, but it's the idea of that freedom of expressing yourself with art gives you an internal sense of structure and organization.
It does. It really does. Like art has become my way of seeing the world in a big way, of visualizing ideas and the world around me. But it's also my way of communicating,
Yes.
of speaking. So it sort of become my eyes and my mouth in a way. That sounds like a title to like a science fiction
Or a new
show or
book.
something. The eyes and mouth of something. I don't know.
Thank you for sharing.
And this is Linda. If you were going to paint to a piece of music, what piece of music would you paint to?
Oh my goodness. I paint to everything. Whenever I hear music, I see color. So most of my artwork is actually music paintings. And that's why they wanted me to paint the 737. Wasn't because I was visually impaired or all this. They wanted artists that could work with music. And they heard that when I hear music, I see color. And they were like, well, let's send you all the music, and you can talk with the artists and stuff. And then you can paint whatever you want, whatever you see. And I was like, well, I can do that. But I painted, like I painted on stage with a symphony, and I painted with jazz bands and blues bands, and I painted with in the studio. I'll listen to absolutely everything. But one of the really interesting things though is that it helps. It's interesting how art is so similar, whether it's music or painting or writing. You can have a composition in painting, or you can have a composition in music or writing. We use a lot of the same words, but also with like in music, like if I get a commission and a wife wants to express that moment that her and her husband met, and she can't find the words for it, but a lot of times she can think of a song that makes her feel the same way, or an artist that makes her feel the same way, like a musician. So she could tell me about that, and I'll listen to the music, and I'll see the colors, and I'll incorporate those colors into the painting, and that'll become the palette for the painting. And that makes a way where you can connect. And and that just, it's just made a wonderful way to be able to actually connect on a different level, you know, and emotionally. And so it's funny how art does that, you know.
Hmm.
You know, and I know this is off topic, but I wanted to brag just really quickly about my guide dog. And the reason is because I think a lot of times I go to a lot of conferences and stuff, and I love the cane, but I noticed that the difference between different guide dog schools is really different. You know, like, and my guide dog is amazing. And so I just wanted to mention really quickly, I know this might be off topic, but
Okay.
there's a different way, there's different kinds of guide dogs, like different training. I mean, all the instructors are the same. You get the trained certification, but there's some guide dogs that are trained to find routes, where it's like an old time, you know, it's like, you know, they take you to the bus stop, then they take you to your job, they can take you to a coffee shop, but it's always a route. And then there's
Right.
also fines. So like my guide dog Eagle knows fines. So if I'm in an airport, it's just me and Eagle, I can ask her to find the men's room. And then she can find the men's bathroom no matter where it is. Like, she knows the difference between a men's bathroom and a ladies' bathroom. And
Oh,
it could be gates and gates away, but she'll find it. And in there, she knows the difference between a urinal and a stall. She knows the sink, the trash can. And then she'll remember where it was I was sitting. Then she'll take me back to my seat, even if she has to go a different way. And then, but to her, my seat is my seat, even if there's somebody sitting in it. So that's where things kind of break down a little, because she'll still put her nose in the middle of somebody, like, hey, you're in John's seat, you know. And so I'll make some quick friends. But one of the things, but I just wanted to mention this because, and it's kind of like a bomb sniffing dog. That's how they find the bathrooms. You know, it's like, you know, how they train the drug sniffing dogs or bomb sniffing dogs. Like, they use the same techniques, but they'll use bathrooms, you know. So instead of
Right.
finding a bomb, she'll find the boys' room. And they're trained to find other things. Like, I can ask her to find the elevator or the button for an elevator or a counter. Just tons and tons of different things. But it makes it where, when you're like, you can use a smartphone and a smart dog, and you could do all these different things. But I just want to mention that because that's a type of training they started in England, and it's been around for about 15 years now, but not every school is training that way. But so I just want to spread the information that, and I'm not saying the routes are bad. I'm not saying cane's bad. I'm just saying there's different options. And sometimes people will use a guide dog, but it's used with routes, and they're still having to go sighted guide quite a bit, because you leave that route and it's not as much help. Where like today I went to visit a gallery. Some people are wanting to work, and I was able to tell Eagle, just point at the gallery owner saying, you know, follow him. And it was this huge space, you know, but she's following him around. No matter where he went, we'd be following. And, you know, or at a hotel, you know, we can check in. I can say, find the counter. She'll find the counter. Someone has to show the room to us, because she's real smart, but she still can't read. So she can't read the numbers. So somebody will find the room. But then after that, she'll remember which room is my room. So I just have to remember what floor I'm on. So I just mentioned this because art has changed my life. The way that I do art is basically orientation and mobility. Is cane training. So the more that I paint, and the more that other people paint the way that I do, which is free to learn, it's just information, you know. But the better that I am able to get around, the better that I'm able to remember what's around me and do things.
Mhm.
And then traveling with a guide dog like Eagle has really been like the next step. So I just wanted to mention that, because a lot of
That's
times,
interesting.
the more you know, they say. So
Right.
there's just so much out there. And then they have these wonderful apps that are just incredible. I use apps that will look at a photo, and that's how I paint people that have passed away, is that I have software and things that can actually make the photos into a tactile sort of version that I can touch and feel. Back in the day, we had to do plaster casts of people's faces and stuff, you know, like, and then I had a giant 3D printer where I could print out somebody's face. So we do it like a digital image. And now we have all the software where you can actually feel the map of something, or you can feel a face, you can feel, it's just, there's so much out there. And I'm a huge nerd. So I just wanted to, I know we're talking about art, we're talking about this, but I just wanted to say, guys, like, things are just getting better and better every day. There's just reason to hope for everything. There's a reason to celebrate. There's a reason, you know, to think that tomorrow could be a better day. You know, we have art in our life. We have good people in our life. We have things that are improving. And I just wanted to mention all that.
Thank you for sharing that. We do have two more questions. So,
Ooh,
Suzanne.
Hi, it's about the guide dog.
oh,
What
brilliant.
school- I have a retired seeing eye dog. What guide dog school did you get your dog from?
I went through the guide dogs of Texas. It's not as well known out of Texas because they only serve people in Texas. But
Okay.
we're just getting a brand new guide dog school that's opening up too, called Vision Guide Dogs. And I think we're not sure. I was on the board of directors for Guide Dogs of Texas for a while, and now I'm working with Vision Guide Dogs, and they're amazing. Oh my goodness! Like with the Vision Guide Dogs, they, instead of going to the school for a month to train, they actually send an instructor out to you, and they train with you one-on-one, and they go to the businesses that you would go to. They go in the places you would go. And so all the problems and things that you would interact on a normal day, they're there to help you and make sure that everybody knows that it's a guide dog. It is okay for them to be in a business and all that. That makes it stressful adapting to a dog or learning for the guide dog is your first time. So, so I love that idea. I love that concept that you get this one-on-one. Because I know some of the guide dog schools, it might be 20 or 30 people in a class, which is fine. And I'm not knocking anything. I'm really not. But if you're somebody like me, one-on-one is probably better. You need that one-on-one.
That's helpful. Thanks,
Yeah,
Suzanne.
that's great. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for the question, Suzanne.
I don't know.
Suzanne,
I'm sorry.
do you have something else to
I'm
say?
just so excited about the way he explained the guide dog.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
and that's something too, like, and it's great to have options and it can be frustrating at times too, when you're not able to do the things that you want to do. And I think painting has taught me to calm down a little bit and slow down and give myself time, because I can be very impatient about things. And, but if I can help anybody with any of that, I mean, I don't have all the answers, but if I can help get anybody in touch with somebody, I will sure do that.
thank you for that. Dawn, you have a question?
Yes.
Gallery view.
I admire your artwork, though I'm not an artist whatsoever, but I can see the colors behind you, which is very nice.
Oh, thank you, Don.
But my question also has to do with the guide dog. When you mentioned the fines and the routes, because I have an application and I've been accepted, so I'm just waiting. If they just specifically do routes, which I have a feeling they do, I'm wondering if can they do fines as well? Because obviously bathroom situations are always a big deal. Among other things.
The bathroom thing is my favorite thing that my guide dogs do. But you can, it's just something to learn so that they can be taught. So it's just so if a lot of guide dog schools are doing some fines, like there's some that really go heavy into it. And the school that I went to, the Guide Dogs of Texas, was really heavy, like just being able to find this and that.
Okay.
There's others that are because the routes work and that's what's been around. And so they're, so they're a little hesitant to change it up, but they'll still do some fines a little bit. And one thing with the guide dog school that I went to, they actually show you how to train for the fines. But of course, my dogs have already been trained to do the fine. So I don't know if what they tell me to do would work on a dog that's never been trained to do fines, but what I do, like if I have a new fine, like my dad was in the hospital once and he was having a heart procedure done, and I wanted to be up there all the time, so I was just up at the hospital a lot, and I'm a big fan of coffee, so I would, during the middle of the night, you're just like, oh, I don't want to go to sleep, and so the school showed me how to find things because dad was getting moved all over the place and coffee pots were all weird spots. So whenever I would find one, I would tap the coffee pot with a treat and I would say, find coffee. And then my dog was really smart. So then she would know, oh, I need to find a coffee pot. So it's something like that. And for her, it worked really well. And for my new guide dog, Eagle, well, I say new, she's about to retire. That works too. But for a dog that's never been trained to do fines, like I think she was trained to learn, that's like, it's just adding to it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, but
helpful.
It's definitely something they can be taught.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Well, John, I really want to thank you so much for sharing your artistic journey with us. and everything else, and your inspiration. And you're a beautiful artist. We really, really enjoyed your presentation here tonight.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
Linda.
thank
and-
you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for having me on here. You guys are amazing. Thanks for
Thank you.
letting me spend some time with you.
You're
No, it was a
amazing.
pleasure. We look
Yeah.
forward to, I'm gonna go on your Facebook page. We look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you come on the Facebook Live, I apologize. We have no production value, but, but we do have fun.
That'd be fun. If you're ever in New Jersey, make sure you make time to visit Vision Loss Alliance. We have a very
Yeah.
nice art studio.
Oh, that's wonderful. I would love to do that.
Well, you
Ah.
have an open invitation.
Well, thank
Yes.
you. And if anybody's down in the Dallas area, you have an open invitation to my gallery, and I'll make sure you have a good time. And if you're really feeling kind of adventurous, since you're in Texas, we can get you on a mechanical bull and get a big hat on you too. We can make it a really special time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And John, we thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Oh,
John.
Thank you.
Zoom meet lead.
Have a great night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good
You
night.
too.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Stay
night.
well. Happy spring.
Bye. Good luck with everything, John. We hope to see you continue to do wonderful things, and we'll be following you.
Thank you so much, Elsa. Have a great night.
You as
Good
well.
night, John.
Good night, Linda. Night, everybody.
Night.